The survival horror genre is one of my favorite genres of video gaming. The limited resources, challenging puzzles, and grotesque imagery are the perfect blend to make a truly unique gaming experience. One of the top dogs of this genre is a game called Resident Evil. Tonight, in the spirit of Halloween, I will be reviewing these games worst to best. For the sake of my own sanity, I will not be including games such as Resident Evil Revelations, although some of those games are actually pretty good. So without further ado, let's review some evil. This is the Overstimulation Station.
Resident Evil 6.
You know, I hate to say this is the worst game in the main series, but if we're talking survival horror, then Resident Evil 6 really fails to live up to that title. This game feels more first-person shooter than it does survival horror. With the advent of Resident Evil 5 and 6, a new control scheme was implemented that threw me off from the controls of the previous games. In RE6, you can choose 4 different campaigns as either Leon Kennedy, Chris Redfield, some guy named Jake, and Ava Wong. All the campaigns have various interweaving storylines, which is kind of interesting and gives the game a lot more replay value. However, at the end of the day, this game feels worlds apart from the Resident Evil I fell in love with. The resource management and puzzle solving elements aren't nearly as apparent in this game as in the earlier games, which is why I feel Resident Evil 6 is the worst in the series.
Resident Evil.
I oftentimes forget this game even existed. For whatever reason, this is one of the least memorable Resident Evil games in the series. I feel like I'm not alone in saying that because this is one of the only games in the franchise that has yet to receive any kind of HD treatment, and I understand why. This game didn't break any new ground. It was very similar to Resident Evil 2, and it was a short game compared to the others. Nemesis was a cool villain, and at the end of the game, Raccoon City gets nuked, but besides that, it was your standard survival fare. Having said that, Resident Evil 3 stays much truer to the survival horror genre than some of the other titles on this list. There are Resident Evil purists out there who hate Resident Evil 5 and 6 because they deviated too much from the survival horror genre. RE5 and 6 lean more towards the arcadey style action of a first-person shooter. But with that being said, RE5 is just a fun game. Aside from some familiar characters, there isn't much connection between this game and the Resident Evil series as a whole. But Capcom wanted to try something new, and I feel like as a standalone game, it paid off. There was so much hype about this game following the huge success of Resident Evil 4 that RE5 still sold well despite it being a massive departure for the series. It was also in this game that Albert Wesker finally kicked the bucket, which really sucked because I have some strange obsession with that character. He's probably my favorite video game villain of all time. Story-wise, Resident Evil 0 was a prequel to the events that would happen in the first Resident Evil game. I have nostalgic feelings for this game because it initially only came out on the Nintendo GameCube, which was the first console I ever owned. RE0 introduced a real-time character switch mechanic that was used to solve many of the challenges in the game. At first I was hesitant to embrace this new gameplay mechanic, but it proved to be a nice breath of fresh air for the series. At the time when this game first came out, it was the best looking Resident Evil game I had ever seen. The graphics still hold up to this day, even on the original non-HD version. Plus, who the hell could forget all those damn leeches? I don't think anyone will argue that Code Veronica belongs in the pantheon of mainline Resident Evil games. You reprise your role as Claire Redfield as she travels to Europe to look for her brother Chris. Along the way, you meet up with Wesker, again, and navigate through a mansion, again. There are elements of this game, however, that just feel special. I'm not an intelligent enough guy to convey what those elements are, but most Resident Evil fans have a very special place in their heart for Code Veronica. For me, I loved the schizophrenic Alfred Ashford in that creepy facility in Alaska. This was also the first Resident Evil game that did not premiere on a Sony PlayStation, but rather the short-lived Sega Dreamcast. When a new game becomes a breakout success, you can bet that a sequel is right around the corner. The sequel can make or break the future of a new franchise, and when Resident Evil 2 came out, it became clear that this new franchise was here to stay. This was the first game to introduce Leon Kennedy, Claire Redfield, and Ada Wong, 3 characters that would become very popular in the series. Instead of exploring an abandoned mansion, you were gunning your way through the streets of Raccoon City, eventually happening upon the abandoned RCPD police station. The story is expanded immensely in this game while still keeping the puzzles, resource management, and horror aspects intact. I can't wait until this game receives the full remaster treatment in 2019. Whoa, buddy. I hadn't seen or played a Resident Evil game in many years. Resident Evil 5 and 6 had seemingly pushed the series so far out to sea, there was no turning back. Then Resident Evil 7 happened. Not only does this game look beautiful, the controls feel like butter in your hands. I have never felt so comfortable navigating through a Resident Evil game before. But the biggest achievement of this game? Bringing Resident Evil into the next generation while also maintaining what made the game great originally. And in my opinion, improving upon it. I have never been more scared in a game before. I have never prayed for just a few extra bullets in a game like I have in this one. The balance of challenge and reward was impeccable. The only thing that keeps this game from being a masterpiece in my mind is just how short it felt. But that could have been because I was having just that much fun playing it. Love it.
I'm not gonna hurt you. Hell, I never would have if I could have helped it.
When I was talking earlier about a new game developing into a franchise, there can sometimes be some awkward growing pains along the way. Resident Evil 4 is the exact opposite of all of that. When I say this game is legendary, I'm not saying that as my opinion. That is factual. The gameplay mechanics in Resident Evil 4 redefined not only the survival horror genre, but action games altogether. The over-the-shoulder camera angle and snap focus aiming are now industry standards thanks to Resident Evil 4. The development of RE4 was not a smooth one though, and Capcom almost faced a series cancellation if this game did not sell well. After retooling the game several times, they finally reached perfection, and Resident Evil 4 is considered by most to be the best game of the entire series. For me, the best game in the series is the one that started it all. Tank controls or not, pre-rendered backgrounds or not, the first Resident Evil game checked all the boxes for me. Maybe it's because I've always loved the idea of being able to explore an old mansion. I don't know. Seriously, though. Even as a kid, all I wanted was an old mansion to explore and to be creeped out in. The puzzles, the zombies, the ambience. This game is simply perfection to me. Well, I should say the GameCube version and up is perfection. Let's be honest, the original kind of looks like ass now. This game is everything I want in survival horror. To me, in my opinion, it is a perfect game, and it is the best in the series.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my video and agree with my list. But if you don't, you have recourse, sir or madam. Please post your rebuttal in the comments section underneath this moving picture. I hope everybody has a gory and pus-filled Halloween. And if you're feeling randy for some more Halloween-related content, feel free to check out my other Halloween videos. Oh, not you again. Not you. I was ready for him this time.